Fracking is a process whereby natural gas is harvested from hard-to-reach shale deposits deep in the earth. Businesses and corporations use fracking because it is highly profitable and relatively new. The natural gas produced by fracking takes up 1/4 of the U.S. energy allocation. People in their homes are also highly affected by fracking as it poisons the groundwater and delocates them from their home. Also, it pollutes the earth and contaminates a lot of the environment. So how do the positives and the negatives of fracking stack up against each other? This question can be extremely complicated and has a ton of different perspectives, so it's important to start from the beginning and ask ourselves what exactly fracking is. So the process of fracking really has three main steps. First, water is trucked into the drill site and it's pumped down into the ground at extremely high pressure. This pressure breaks the rock and releases the gas within the rock, which is very hard to get to. And then this gas goes back up the pipe the water came down and is collected at the top. Here's an illustration of what fracking looks like from a side view. Along with fracking rising in popularity, the United States has also seen an increase in the usage of profitable natural gas in homes and generating electricity. And this is coupled with the fact that natural gas could really be found all throughout the United States. So those two things happening together really led the United States to energy dependence, as well as natural gas has a great capacity to serve as a transition fuel from dirty coal, which produces a lot of carbon dioxide, in between future renewable energy, which is obviously what we strive for, but we're just not there yet, so we could use natural gas. And this is because natural gas is way lower CO2 emissions than coal. So this seems pretty cool, and there are really great effects, but fracking does come at a grave cost to the sites that it takes place in. It causes pollution of groundwater and surface level environments. It releases a ton of methane as opposed to CO2, but methane still is a greenhouse gas and does worse damage to the environment than CO2. And a lot of time areas are just cleared out so that fracking could take place. All three of those effects have further indirect effects on people in the future, obviously. It also affects the people immediately around fracking facilities with the chemicals that are left in the ground, like methanol, which causes blindness, coma, and death in people, and also hydrochloric acid, which is obviously caustic. Fracking is also invasive, and companies show little regard for those who they do it around. The first image is a fracking well set up right in somebody's backyard, or very close to it, and the second one is a fracking well very close to a schoolyard and a playground. Fracking produces a ton of wastewater, which is extremely bad for the environment. In 2011, the United States used 140 billion gallons of water just for fracking. And just for visualization, that is about 28 billion of those 5-gallon water coolers. So fracking definitely has a lot of negative effects to very specific groups of people that are in very specific proximities around the site. But it also has very ubiquitous developmental and economic effects throughout the whole world. But it's conflicting because you can't just have such positive effects for everybody while still hurting a specific group of people when you know that you could make an actual list of the people that are being negatively affected by it. So I came up with the metaphor of fracking being a double-edged sword because you got the negative effects on one side and the positive effects on the other. And if fracking is not handled properly, the negative effects can definitely outweigh the positive ones. I just think that fracking needs to be regulated more and that we could, really control the negative effects and then be able to fully utilize this awesome energy gathering process. Like I said, a double-edged sword needs a lot of care when you're handling it. You wouldn't give a sword to a kid, but a well-trained knight could use a sword very well. It's the same thing with fracking, however, I don't think right now fracking is being handled very properly. So my capstone question was, could a utilitarian perspective clarify the balance between the positive economic and developmental benefits of fracking for natural gas and the negative environmental and health consequences? It just means, where is the balance between the positive and the negative effects of fracking, and does utilitarianism support it? This question could obviously be answered by utilitarianism. Utilitarianism is the measure of good and bad, right and wrong, just and unjust. Can only be seen by the effects that an action has on it. So the only way to see the intrinsic value or rightness or wrongness of an action is to look at what happens afterwards. And it's pretty obvious fracking is not supported by utilitarianism right now with its current regulations and collective irresponsibleness of process. Too much of the environment is destroyed, too many people are affected, a lot of water is wasted, the earth is polluted, chemicals are put into the ground, people's homes are being fracked, people's schools are being fracked, a lot of deaths are caused by chemicals seeping into wells and people trying to drink out of the wells. These two examples just go to show that the beneficial aspects of fracking are outweighed by the effects of its process. Even though it produces a lot of money and makes a ton of business connections, and natural gas is extremely abundant in the United States and could easily be utilized, and it makes the United States energy independent, and it produces a lot of profit both in terms of money and actual energy that we could use. The negative effects are just too great for the people that are affected. People actually have wells in their backyard. These are real life examples of people being negatively affected by it. You could go to a fracking well and use a UV camera to actually see the methane leaking out. It's just too detrimental to the environment and to people to be effective in any way. Although local, state, and federal government all regulate fracking, fracking still seems to be a detriment to a lot of the environment and people that it counters. If this could be changed, we'd be able to utilize a full potential energy resource, natural gas, which we have an 82-year supply of, which is a lot of gas and energy for the United States, without causing all this harm. And that's an ideal situation, and we could achieve that through higher regulation of fracking and being more careful with how we use our energy and how fracking really affects people and the environment.